Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the head of marketing at Infotools. Today, we're joined once again by Greg Stucky, Chief Research Officer of InsightsNow. Thanks for joining us on the show again, Greg.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So Greg's focused his career on innovation strategy and developing new methods, techniques, and research services for inspiring innovation. His deep experience in applying consumer behavior to product innovation has garnered industry attention and awards, with work featured in Harvard Business Review, the LA Times, SMR World, and other industry publications. Greg pioneered cue signals research for identifying product cues that motivate specific behaviors, enabling the development of successful new products and brands. Greg holds a master's degree in food science and technology with a concentration in sensory science from Oregon State University. Greg and the InsightsNow team know it's hard to align product and brand strategy, but it is essential to design experiences people love. Their moments-based behavioral approach empowers product leaders to activate insights and create product and brand strategy alignment, ultimately contributing to a healthier, happier world, which sounds amazing. So with that as a background, what is the most significant thing you're going to share with us today, Greg?
Thanks much. Today, we're going to be talking about something that really people who are really good at product innovation don't actually like to talk about. It's kind of like, it's not really the dirty little secret, but it's a secret that insiders hold pretty tight. You're never going to see this in books. You're not going to see it taught in the universities. And the thing is the secret they have is that one of the most important pieces of information you have as an innovator is the size of the aspirational gap that the consumers have in a specific moment of their life. So that's the gap between what they really aspire to do and what they're actually doing today. When you're armed with that particular gap, you're equipped to build a product for where people desperately want to go. So that's the most significant thing.
Oh, sounds like an interesting topic. So I guess in our last episode, we touched on innovators. For many, they'll think of innovators as being those in the startup world who raise lots of equity and live the high life, but that's not necessarily the case, is it? So when you're referring to innovators, what kinds of people are you thinking about?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, you certainly can include startups in that, but mostly I'm referring to people who work with large corporations. They're on teams who create new products and new services with, the goal to drop billion-dollar brands into the marketplace for consumers. And when we launched InsightsNow back in 2003, 20-year anniversary now, we saw this big chasm between how the companies were running their innovation programs and what we saw playing out in the lives of consumers day to day. And companies tended to be focused on metrics that really didn't have a lot to do with a person's actual choices or use behaviors. And most companies had innovation programs pointed at like what people want, what aspects of the market are growing, but very few were ahead of the game, really looking into how do I improve a person's life? How do I make the future better, brighter, happier, healthier, cleaner? How do I drive that engagement?
So thinking about that aspiration gap, can you give us an example of what that may look like in the world today?
Sure. Let's see. Let's take one of the biggest, hottest topics today. Let's talk about sustainability, right? Climate friendly, climate positive products. If you look at what people are doing today in terms of what they say they want and how they make their choices, you're going to see that consumers, by and large, are going to tell you, I want sustainable products. But they're also going to tell you that at the point of purchase, I'm not really thinking about sustainability very much. So there's a really big gap. I really wish I had sustainability, but I'm not actually buying that way today. Our most recent data that we got ran back in August of 22 showed that 48% of people looking at food and beverage products aspire to buy sustainable products, but only about 15% are actually buying that way today. So you've got this big gap. You've got, a third of the population of the United States wanting to buy sustainable, aspiring to buy sustainable for their basic food and beverage, but they're not doing it. So here's the secret. The innovation teams that focus on that small group of consumers that say they really want it, but aren't actually doing it. When you're building for that group of people, you're building for people who already want a product that you haven't yet made, right? There's already a gap. So if you're the innovator and you look at that data and you say, wow, yeah, nobody's buying sustainable, I guess I really shouldn't put much money towards sustainability today because only 15% are doing it. You're probably not going to be building very many products that are going to have a long trend. Whereas the innovators that take a look at that same data and say, wait a minute, there's a really big gap there. There's a huge difference. If I can figure out why that difference exists today and build a product to fulfill that need, that desire, that aspiration, those are the companies that are going to be ahead. They're the ones going to be driving the trends, making those trends happen today.
So why do you think this is happening with consumers? They want it, but they say it doesn't matter when they buy.
Yeah, this is good. I get a little science now. So to make it simple, people do care, right? And they actually do consider sustainability at the shelf. But even though they're telling you they're not, and there's a couple of reasons for this. First, there's going to be a lot of sustainable products that people are just being told are sustainable, right? Like, hey, eat this plant-based meat alternative product, and nobody's really telling them all the great sustainability pieces about this. So for instance, with plant-based meat alternatives, if you go to the websites, Impossible, Beyond, all these companies doing these fantastic products that are wonderfully sustainable, you're going to see their websites are littered with all the great ways those products are sustainable. If you go to the store and you pick up one of their packages, you look for the word sustainable, you look for the word climate friendly, you look for any of those symbols or cues that tell you that it is sustainable, you're not going to find any. In fact, you might find just the opposite. You might find, oh, sorry, this plastic wrap around this lunch meat is not sustainable. So they're not really being told the right information, right? It's not like consumers are in the grocery store with their cell phone on their website going, what is this brand about, right? If it's not on the package, they don't know about it. So one reason they say they are not buying sustainable is because they're picking up products they don't believe are sustainable, even though they are. So something that's a huge opportunity for people in packaging and branding for certain.
Yeah, I wonder if it's also the case where they're still trying to appeal to the majority and almost get people to buy it by mistake, which
yeah.
So it seems like it's a pretty big oversight, right? So you'd think that kind of approach to leave out being sustainable or mentioning it is intentional. What was the research telling them, do you think? That other messaging perhaps is more important?
Yes, without a doubt, without a doubt. That's what the research does show. So if you look at just what people are telling you, if you will, they're going to be very rational about it. They're going to say, well, I do want high protein. I do want it a vegan product. I do want these things. These are the things I'm buying today. These are the things I'm wanting today. And so they're going to highlight those aspects. Hey, this has this much protein. It's low in fat. It's vegan. Et cetera, so forth. So it's end up going to be very diet related. But what is that doing? They're connecting then with what's very rational about the product versus emotionally what people really want to hear. So you see in the plant-based meat in the US, the sales are flattening out, companies laying off staff. It's not for lack of good products, right? In that particular case, they're really just missing out on understanding the context in which they're engaging their constituents, right? Their consumers. So if we can really start to appeal to the moments that consumers are considering using the products, right? That's when we're going to be able to understand, well, what kind of messaging do they wish they could hear? What are they aspirational to hear? Because people are going to follow their hopes and dreams more than just a rational mindset most often.
No, sure. So I like that point you said about moments, and I take it that there's a bit of juice that we can squeeze out of this one here. So you said that moments do matter. How do you think this plays a role in the aspirational gap?
Yeah, so aspirations are, we can talk about them generically, and that's where like 48% of the people wanting sustainability comes from. But if you drill down into specific moments, those numbers can change really dramatically. So the second half of the big secret that comes with aspirations is the moment part of it. And really, there's three key parts to when we talk about moments, right? So it's moments used, it's the context or the situation you're in, the needs that you have that are internal to yourself. I want something healthy, I want something better for the environment. And then the motivators, those things that you want products to do for you, right? So you've got within the context space, right? This is the environmental setting. So if it's a plant-based meat and you're doing meat slices, it's maybe while you're making a sandwich for lunch. So our understanding that setting, what you have available to you, what's going on in that moment, is it social, is it not social? Most of our behavior and our memories are directly connected to that context. So if you want your brand implicitly connected to a person's mind as the right choice, then you got to build it for the moment that they're in. And if you understand that part of the moment, you'll connect better with those aspirations. The second part of the moment is then the person's internal needs. And this probably gets talked about the most. Most people talk about and learn about in school need states, unmet needs, demand spaces, all of these things which are really important, but they're just one part of the moment. So understanding their needs, that's great. That's internal to a person. It's their goals, their desires, right? It sounds a lot like their aspirations, and it generally is. But if all you're doing is asking which of them are they acting on today, then you're missing out on that gap. Right? So that's the second part. It connects to what we talked about earlier, which is aspirations. And then the third part of a moment is motivators. And this is where your product comes to play, right? For product innovators, this is the aspect of the product that they have control over, right? It's how they design the product so that it intuitively connects with those needs and the environment that they're using it. And that's why, like if I pick on lunch meat again, if the package doesn't talk about sustainability and in that moment, I'm really hoping and desiring something sustainable, I'll look at it and I won't think it's a good fit. But if I see a planet-friendly piece right there, boom, I'm in, right? Oh, good, I'm doing something. I'm making a sandwich that's good for me, healthy for me, and delivers on one of my core aspirations, which would be take care of the planet and our environment.
Yeah, sure. So let's dive into moments a little bit further then. What do you think another example would look like in real life?
Okay, so let's take another example. So why don't we take something we all do, have breakfast, right? So if I say breakfast is the context, you don't really have the whole picture. For instance, maybe it's breakfast where you're looking for something nutritious to sustain you through the day. Maybe your breakfast is like scrambling to get out while you're getting your kids ready to go out the door, and half of it's going to be eaten walking to the door and while you're putting on your coat, and the other half's eaten while you're in the car, right? Or maybe it's like what I'm hoping to do this weekend is sit on my deck and just relax, listen to the birds wake up, sing their songs. All those contexts are all breakfast, but they're really, really different. So the understanding the context changes what your core needs are, what your brain pays attention to. If I'm hurrying and I'm going out the door, I'm probably deciding between something like energy bar and cold pizza, right? Because they're both grabbable, walkable. But I don't know about what about you? If you're walking out the door, what are the things you're gonna choose? Like if you have to race, what are your
Yeah.
go-to?
Often I'll try and plan ahead. I'll have a coffee and I'll either have nothing or maybe a bit of toast or something if I've got time. Bit of fruit on the bar. So
Right,
yeah,
right. So it's got to be fast, got to be obvious, got to be
yeah,
right in your face if you
that's
really
right.
want something fun. Now, in that moment, when you're rushing out the door super fast, like how much time do you have to stop and look at a package and decide, I wonder if this is sustainable or not?
You make it into nothing really. Yeah.
Nothing, right? Is zero. I mean, so you've got to understand versus if I'm sitting on my deck and I got plenty of time, I'm brewing my coffee, I'm looking through my fridge going, yeah, what else should I do creative this morning? I got lots of time to think. And I may make radically different decisions, and sustainability becomes a lot more important in that relaxing moment than it that is in the racing moment. Now, if you move back to the grocery store time period when you're buying, right? If people feel guilty about not having, sustainable products while they're racing out the door, you can appeal to that guilt, right? Earlier on in the process, earlier on in their journey, so that the things they have available still meet their needs and still meet their aspirations. So,
Mm.
yeah, those are the things like what your brain pays attention to in that moment. That's what you're prioritizing as valuable. So I want to understand those aspirations, and then I want to be able to connect that emotionally to a person. So if you know the three pieces, the context, the need, the motivators, and you're focusing on the aspirations that they have in that one moment where they're unfulfilled, now you've got something to work with.
So what you've just described from a context and needs a motivation perspective is absolutely on point, and it seems somewhat obvious for those looking to create a new product or service. Why then the secrecy? Why aren't we hearing more talk of this from innovators?
I think it's two reasons. First, it's because the innovators who are really good at understanding and applying moments to their work are actually having so much fun building really successful products. They're not the ones out there teaching people how to do it into the next generation. It's the people frustrated that are still trying to figure stuff out, and they've got one nugget here, one nugget there that ends up in most of our written material we find. And second, it's because the innovators who are really good at building those billion-dollar brands are pretty competitive. And it's fun to win at shelf. It really is fun to build strong products. And if you've got a way to consistently do that, you might give part of the story, but you're probably not overly eager to tell everyone.
Fair enough. So let's get back to buying then. You said there were many reasons why people are not buying what they aspire to buy. First was a lack of communication on the part of the company. What else is causing this gap?
Well, the second reason we're seeing such big gaps is that what they actually buy is a trade-off that they're making. So if sometimes it's a gap because products are just not available on the market, another reason is they're being forced to make a trade-off. So an obvious one that's really challenging sustainability is price. Most of the really sustainable food products are coming at a price premium. So really that 48% of people in the US that don't have a highly expendable income, right? They're below on low income or even below the poverty line. They're being forced because of their real situation in life to buy less sustainable products over the higher priced, more sustainable ones. So that's a challenge when people are being forced essentially to buy something that they'd rather not buy. Out of stock is also a similar scenario, right? Lack of distribution of certain types of products. We saw that through the pandemic. That's going to hopefully go away sometime soon here, but that's another piece of that same puzzle. And then the other half of it is a benefit trade-off. So if you're rushing out the door with your breakfast in your hand and you have the ability to have something that's handheld and, but then not messy is going to trump whether the product is sustainable or not. Like if I have two things, one's sustainable, but it's a little bit messier, the other one's not sustainable, definitely not messy, I'm going to pick the not messy because it'll take higher priority. Now, if you can combine the two, if you're the innovator and you can realize what's in priority, okay, I got to get my sustainable product in there, but messiness is always going to take priority. I know I have to have that as table stakes in order to get people to their aspiration. So a benefit trade-off is the next space.
So
context controls that, yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the context of the moment is key to building and innovating for the aspirational gap.
Yeah, certainly. And I think that's really the key at the end of the day is that if you're looking for opportunities to build out new innovations, the thing that should excite you the most is where there are just no products available today that consumers are going to feel that meet their aspirations at all. So if you're making trade-offs, okay, I got to make my current product that's sustainable, but a little bit messy. I got to make it a little less messy. That's fun. That's interesting. But if you say, look, there is no product out there today that fits this, that's true white space. That's really going to get the people who are really creative and innovative, their juices flowing, if you will, right? So that's the opportunity. You're looking for gaps where the gap exists because there's trade-offs people are making. Those usually are short-term innovations. And then there's the gaps where there's just no products out there today that help deliver against that. Those end up being your more longer-term innovation products and the ones where you're actually bringing something completely new to market.
Yeah, sure. So it does seem like a lot to coordinate. Let's say you have all the aspects of a moment and the gaps. How do you decide where to put your focus?
Really good. So great question. I would say what separates great innovators who are really changing the world are those who are going to create strategies around specific moments of people's lives. So when you look at the research opportunity, if you, instead of looking at people as marbles, if you will, right, and segmenting people based on who they are and what they believe, if you instead segment moments in people's lives and design for specific moments, when you build product strategies, which are in full alignment with a brand strategy, all focused at that same moment in life, and put products against against the aspirational gap in that moment, then now you're bringing everybody into alignment, everybody on the same page. You got the same goal, and you can hit a moment where you're going to emotionally connect with people. So if you don't have a great strategy, a lot of companies have strategies for their brands. That's pretty common. But a lot of companies don't have great product strategies that are focused on what moment in life am I really trying to design this product to deliver it or live it. So it's really hard to make really great decisions unless you have that product strategy.
For sure. Market research is feeding into product strategies. Sound like it could be a whole different session. I guess we could have you back on to hear more about that.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, product strategies, yeah, it's a game changer for most R&D teams. Certainly the ones that we're working with right now who have been flipping over to putting in place more moments-based product strategies are seeing really big changes and a lot more success, a lot less iteration as they go through the design functions. So yeah, not nearly as many R&D teams out there have really good strategies aligned with their brand strategies, but that would be fun to come back and talk about because yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I wish product strategies was a notebook that you had to fill out. It would be done.
Make it easy for us.
That's right.
Yeah. So if I can recap what we've talked about today, Greg, all about that aspirational gap. So people wanting to change their behavior, their purchasing habits, but then when push comes to shove, something else trumps it. So they want to, but they don't yet. And one of the best ways to address this gap for product teams, for brands, is to understand the moments that they're in. So as you've talked about, it's understanding the context. So we really need to understand what the particular time, the situation is they're in that particular moment, their need. So breakfast, they're hungry, they need to quickly get into the car and go, they need something to eat, and then the motivator as well. So what's the underlying push for them to choose and to make that decision? Lots of interesting chat that you brought into that there. We'll do really well as organizations to focus on those moments. And yeah, so we do thank you for sharing some of that there. We had a look at some of the reasons why people aren't buying what they're saying they're buying, and we heard about that there. Cost could be some of them, availability, benefit trade-offs as well. So if you can seek to try and fill that aspirational gap and target that, may have to require a few different tactics to do so. You should be set to gain some decent market share and possibly even some white space, some new category design as well. So I think that overall covered it. Any other points you wanted to raise, Greg?
Well, that's I think you covered it really well. People in life, we're emotional creatures. At the end of the day, our goal as innovators should be to really enhance people's lives. And if I want to enhance your life, I got to know what moments need enhanced. And that's really where I think the long and short of the opportunity is. You look at that context of where they're at, find out where their gaps are, and start focusing on that so that we can make a better world for everybody.
Sounds good. And it's a company-wide approach as well, isn't it? Everyone can feed into that. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
You're welcome very much. Thanks for having me, Michael.
Thank you. And for the listeners out there, if you have liked what you've heard today, feel free to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, or share it with others. Check out the work that Greg's doing as well at InsightsNow. And that said, thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.